There are moments in life when a single idea challenges everything we thought we knew. Debt, for most people, is one of those ideas. We're taught to fear it, avoid it, run from it. Debt is dangerous. Debt destroys lives. Debt is the enemy. But what if that wasn't the whole truth? In The Value of Debt in Building Wealth, Thomas J. Anderson flips the financial world upside down. He argues something bold, something uncomfortable, something that separates the wealthy from the struggling. Debt, when used intentionally, isn't a burden. It's a tool, a lever, a quiet engine that the rich use to accelerate wealth, while everyone else is taught to stay afraid. This book is not about reckless borrowing or living beyond your means. It's about strategic debt, the kind that frees your cash, boosts your net worth, protects your investments, and creates long-term stability. Anderson introduces a framework used by banks, corporations, and high-net-worth individuals, showing that the rules of money are different for the wealthy, not because they're richer, but because they understand how to structure their finances. You're about to explore why having zero debt is not the most financially secure position, how the right type of debt can increase your wealth, why liquidity is more valuable than owning everything outright, how wealthy families use safe leverage to build generational wealth, a step-by-step system to measure, balance, and structure your debt for long-term financial growth. This book challenges your beliefs. It stretches your comfort zone. It forces you to ask the question, is my fear of debt stopping me from building real wealth? If you've ever felt frustrated with your financial progress, if you've ever wondered how wealthy people grow faster, even when you seem to follow all the safe rules, if you've ever questioned whether being debt-free is truly the ultimate financial strategy, this book will open a new path, one of confidence, clarity, and intelligent financial design. Welcome to a world where debt becomes your ally, not your enemy. A world where structure and strategy matter more than fear. A world where wealth is not built by avoiding risk, but by managing it wisely.
Chapter 1. Rethinking Debt. The Wealth Paradox. Chapter 1 opens with a simple but powerful truth. Most people misunderstand debt, not because they're careless, but because they've only been taught one side of the story. Society tells us debt is bad. Debt destroys families. Debt keeps people poor. And yes, mismanaged debt can do exactly that. But Thomas J. Anderson explains a deeper insight. The wealthy don't fear debt. They manage it. They structure it. They benefit from it. This is the fundamental paradox of wealth. The people who have the most options are the ones who use debt, and the people who fear debt the most are the ones who often get stuck financially. The debt-free trap. We're taught that becoming debt-free is the ultimate financial goal, but Anderson challenges this idea. Imagine two people. Person A works hard to pay off their mortgage as fast as possible, builds no liquidity, has all their money locked in a house, looks financially safe from the outside, but one emergency, one job loss, one downturn, and everything collapses. Person B has the same mortgage, but keeps liquid savings, has an emergency reserve, uses low-interest debt while investing the difference, maintain flexibility, resilience, and long-term growth. Which one is truly safer? The answer, Anderson argues, is person B, because wealth isn't about owning everything, it's about controlling your resources. The three categories of debt. Anderson defines debt in three forms. 1. Good debt. Debt that increases your wealth or strengthens your financial structure. Examples: low-interest mortgage, business loans, investment leverage, lines of credit used strategically. This type of debt works for you. Bad debt. Debt that drains your future. Examples: credit cards, high-interest loans, impulse spending. This type of debt controls you. And 3. Necessary debt. Debt used for essential needs when income is limited. Examples: student loans, car loans, medical payments. Not ideal, but sometimes unavoidable. The key insight: the danger isn't debt, the danger is unstructured debt. The power isn't wealth, it's liquidity. Why liquidity greater than being debt-free? Here's the part most people never learn. When you aggressively pay off debt, you reduce risk in one area, but you increase risk in another. You lose cash, you lose flexibility, you lose options. Anderson stresses that liquid assets are the foundation of safety, not debt elimination. This is why wealthy families and corporations always keep cash available, because cash is freedom. When emergencies happen, opportunities arise, or markets fall. Only liquid people can respond. The core message of Chapter 1. Anderson closes the chapter with a mental shift. Stop asking, "How do I get rid of debt?" Start asking, "How do I structure my debt to strengthen my financial life?" Debt is not the villain. Debt is not the problem. Debt is a tool, and like any tool, it can build or destroy depending on how it's used.
Chapter 2. Your personal balance sheet, the real scoreboard of wealth. Most people judge their financial success based on income. How much do you make? What's your salary? Did you get a raise this year? But Thomas J. Anderson flips the script completely. Income is not wealth. Cash flow is not wealth. Your balance sheet is the real scoreboard of your financial life. This chapter teaches you how wealthy people think, evaluate, and measure their financial world, and why the average person gets it wrong. The big shift. From income thinking to balance sheet thinking. Imagine two people. Person A makes $250,000 a year, but spends $240,000, has almost zero savings, maxed out mortgage, no liquidity, high stress, high lifestyle expectations. Person B makes $70,000 a year, lives simply, saves aggressively, has a structured debt plan, keeps liquidity, invests in growth assets, feels calm, flexible, and prepared. Who's wealthier? Person B every single time. Because Anderson makes this crystal clear. Wealth isn't about what you earn, it's about what you own and control. Your financial life isn't judged by your paycheck. It's judged by your assets, liabilities, liquidity, and structure. All elements of your personal balance sheet. Why everyone needs a personal balance sheet. Your balance sheet tells you exactly what you own, what you owe, how protected you are, how vulnerable you are, how your money is working for you, whether you're building or destroying wealth. The wealthy review their balance sheets constantly. They know exactly what's increasing their wealth and what's draining it. But most people, they don't even have one. They just hope things work out. Anderson argues that this is why financial stress is so common. People are driving blindfolded. Assets, your wealth builders. Assets are anything you own that carries value. Anderson divides assets into two categories. 1. Productive assets. These generate income or appreciate in value. Examples: stocks, bonds, index funds, real estate, business equity, intellectual property, retirement accounts. These add to your wealth. 2. Non-productive assets. These don't generate income. They may look impressive, but they drain your net worth. Examples: cars, jewelry, boats, electronics, luxury items, overly expensive homes. Anderson warns, most people spend their entire life collecting non-productive assets and then wonder why they're still broke. Liabilities, the real wealth killers when mismanaged. Most people hate the word liability, but Anderson once again reframes the concept. A liability is not the enemy. It's the way you structure it that matters. There are two types of liabilities. 1. Productive liabilities. Debt that helps you buy productive assets. Example: a well-structured mortgage that allows you to invest more. 2.
Destructive liabilities. Debt that funds consumption, not wealth. Example: credit card debt for lifestyle spending. The message is simple. The wrong liability destroys you. The right liability builds you. Your net worth is not enough. Most people calculate their net worth and assume that's the full picture. But Anderson says net worth alone is misleading. For example, you have $800,000 in home equity, $50,000 in cash, $20,000 in credit card debt, $250,000 in retirement savings. Net worth looks great, but you have low liquidity, your wealth is tied up in your home. If you lose your job tomorrow, that home equity won't pay your bills. This is why he emphasizes, illiquid wealth is fragile wealth. Liquidity, not net worth, determines how safe you are. Liquidity, the lifeline of financial strength. Liquidity is cash or cash-like assets you can access immediately. Examples: savings, cash reserves, money market funds, lines of credit, low-interest borrowing capacity. Why does liquidity matter? Because life doesn't care about your mortgage being paid off. Life demands cash. Emergencies, opportunities, downturns, they all require liquidity. Most people who pursue the debt-free life have zero liquidity. Anderson argues that this is exactly why they stay financially fragile. The wealthy always have dry powder, liquid reserves. The balance sheet triangle: safety, growth, flexibility. Anderson lays out a simple structure for a powerful balance sheet. 1. Safety. Cash, reserves, liquidity. These protect you from shocks. 2. Growth. Stocks, real estate, business assets. These build long-term wealth. 3. Flexibility. Smart debt structure, borrowing power. This allows you to move quickly. A healthy balance sheet has all three. A debt-free person, they have safety and growth, but no flexibility. They can't access their equity without selling their home or taking high-risk loans. The wealthy setup? Balanced across all three. The emotional side. Why people avoid seeing their real numbers. Anderson points out something emotional and honest. Most people don't create a balance sheet because they're scared of the truth. They don't want to see how much they owe, how little liquidity they have, how few productive assets they own, how much lifestyle spending is draining them. But avoiding the truth never builds wealth. Facing your financial reality is the first act of financial maturity. Major lessons from Chapter 2. Lesson 1. Wealth is measured on a balance sheet, not a paycheck. Income means nothing without structure. Lesson 2. Liquidity is the king of safety and opportunity. Cash is not wasted, it's fuel for flexibility. Lesson 3. Productive assets and productive liabilities work together. Assets grow your wealth, well-structured debt multiplies it. Lesson 4. A strong balance sheet requires emotional honesty. You must face your numbers before you can fix them. Practical action steps for Chapter 2. 1. Create your personal balance sheet today. List everything you own and everything you owe. Group assets into productive, non-productive. 2. Identify dangerous liabilities. High-interest debt. Plan to restructure or eliminate gradually. 3. Calculate your liquidity ratio. How many months could you survive with zero income? Aim for 6 to 12 months minimum. 4. Stop judging your progress by income. Focus on liquidity growth, asset accumulation, liability restructuring, financial flexibility. 5. Begin thinking like the wealthy. Every financial move should improve your balance sheet, not your lifestyle image.
Chapter 3. Why being completely debt-free can make you broke. This chapter is one of the most controversial and one of the most liberating chapters in the entire book. It challenges one of the strongest financial beliefs in American culture. Being debt-free means you're financially free. Thomas J. Anderson says, no, being debt-free can actually make you financially fragile. At first, that feels crazy. I mean, we're raised on Dave Ramsey, credit score fears, and horror stories about debt ruining lives. And yes, bad debt totally destroys people. But Anderson is not talking about reckless borrowing. He's talking about a very specific problem. When you try to eliminate all debt, you accidentally eliminate your liquidity, your safety, and your flexibility. You become house rich, cash poor. You become trapped. Let's dive deeper. The debt-free trap. Owning everything, controlling nothing. Imagine this scenario. You've spent 12 years aggressively paying off your mortgage. You finally own the house outright. No debt, no payments. You feel free. Then life hits you with a punch. You lose your job. Your income stops. Your bills don't. Suddenly you realize your wealth is locked inside your home, and locked wealth can't save you. You have no liquidity. You have no access to cash. You have to borrow at high interest or sell the home you spent years trying to own. This is the emotional core of the chapter. Debt-free people often have their wealth trapped inside assets they can't use when they need it most. Anderson doesn't say debt-free is bad. He says debt-free without liquidity is dangerous. The illusion of security. Most people chase zero debt because it feels safe. It feels clean. It feels responsible. It feels adult. It feels stress-free. But feelings aren't facts. The wealthy don't rely on feelings. They rely on structure. A completely debt-free person may feel secure, but their balance sheet often shows low resilience. Too much equity tied up in a home, not enough accessible cash, no lines of credit, no borrowing power, no ability to seize opportunities, no cushion against emergencies. The truth is, security doesn't come from not owing anyone. Security comes from having options, and options require liquidity. Wealthy people don't fear debt, they fear illiquidity. Anderson repeatedly emphasizes, the wealthy use debt strategically. The poor and middle class fear it emotionally. Why? Because the wealthy understand this simple rule. Liquidity equals opportunity. Illiquidity equals vulnerability. If debt helps you stay more liquid and that liquidity allows you to invest, to grow, to stay safe, then debt becomes a tool, not a threat. This mindset separates the financial elite from the financial anxious. Real-life example. Two families. Family A, the debt-free pursuers, paid off their home, have no mortgage, no car loans, no credit card debt, only $10,000 in savings. Net worth looks great on paper, but cash, barely any. One emergency could break them. Family B, the strategic debtors, have a structured mortgage, use excess cash to build large liquid reserves, invest monthly, maintain lines of credit, have 6 to 12 months of liquidity. Their money works for them. Family A feels safe, but Family B is safe. This chapter drives that distinction home. The problem with paying off a mortgage early. Paying off your mortgage early sounds like the ultimate financial achievement, but Anderson exposes the hidden downside. 1. Every extra payment kills your liquidity. You're locking cash into a house that won't give that cash back unless you sell it or you reborrow it, usually at worse terms. 2. You reduce your flexibility. What if interest rates rise later? What if you need money for an opportunity? What if you need emergency cash? 3. You create dead equity. Equity sitting inside a house earns no percentage return. That same cash in an investment account could be growing. 4. You shrink your financial safety cushion. The safest person isn't the one with zero debt. It's the one with ample liquidity and balanced leverage. This is why banks and wealthy families rarely pay off their mortgages early.
They understand the math behind liquidity. Why total debt elimination doesn't make you rich. Anderson explains a fundamental truth. You cannot save your way to wealth by eliminating debt. You can only build wealth by acquiring assets. Most middle-class people pour every dollar into debt elimination, leaving nothing for investing, retirement, liquidity, wealth growth, opportunity capital. They win the debt battle, but lose the wealth war. The optimal debt zone. This is crucial. Anderson does not tell you to stay heavily in debt. He tells you to stay in the optimal debt range for your age and financial life. Why? Because the right amount of structured mortgage, low-interest liabilities, strategic leverage, borrowing capacity keeps you liquid, flexible, and consistently growing. Too much debt is dangerous. Zero debt is rigid and fragile. The goal is balance, not extremes. The psychological battle. Why people worship debt-free living. Anderson acknowledges the emotional side. Most people chase debt-free living because they fear financial uncertainty. They fear loss. They fear risk. They fear repeating past mistakes. They fear being judged. They were raised not to avoid debt at all costs. Fear shapes their financial lives. But he challenges the listener. If you run your financial life based on fear instead of strategy, you will always cap your potential. Wealth comes from clarity, not fear. Major lessons from Chapter 3. 1. Debt-free does not mean financially safe. Without liquidity, you are one crisis away from disaster. 2. The goal is not zero debt, it's optimal debt. A structured, low-interest mortgage often strengthens your balance sheet. 3. Liquidity matters more than equity. Cash keeps you alive. Equity sits still. 4. Wealth demands flexibility. A debt-free life eliminates financial adaptability. 5. Don't chase emotional comfort. Chase financial strength. Comfort can mislead you. Numbers don't. Practical action steps for Chapter 3. 1. Stop paying off low-rate debt aggressively. Keep minimum payments. Build liquidity instead. 2. Build a liquidity reserve with priority. Aim for 6 to 12 months of cash or cash-like assets. 3. Reevaluate your mortgage strategy. Ask, is paying this off early hurting my liquidity? 4. Shift from emotional decisions to numerical decisions. Feelings lie, numbers don't. 5. Start building productive assets. Invest regularly, even while holding a mortgage.
Chapter 4. The Real Enemy. Bad Debt, Not All Debt. This chapter is where Thomas J. Anderson draws the line in the sand. Up to this point, he has challenged the belief that all debt is bad, but now he makes something very clear. There is a kind of debt that ruins lives. There is a debt that destroys wealth. There is a debt that must be eliminated as fast as possible. And that, my friend, is bad debt, the irresponsible, high-interest, emotionally driven kind that keeps millions of Americans stuck in financial quicksand. But the problem isn't just the debt itself. It's the mindset that creates it. Anderson pulls no punches. Most people use debt emotionally. The wealthy use debt strategically. This chapter explains the difference between strategic leverage and destructive debt, and how to break free from the traps that sabotage financial freedom. Understanding the two types of debt, good versus bad. Almost every major financial mistake comes from mixing these two together. Good, productive debt. The debt that helps you build wealth, keep liquidity, invest consistently, increase financial flexibility, protect yourself from emergencies, take advantage of opportunities. Examples: a well-structured, low-interest mortgage, business debt backed by cash flow, margin used conservatively, student loans that increase earning potential, low-rate personal loans used strategically. This is the debt wealthy families leverage. Bad, destructive debt. This is the killer. Debt used to fund consumption, fuel lifestyle inflation, impress others, cope emotionally,
escape boredom, chase instant gratification, buy now, pay later traps, vacations on credit. Anderson calls this type of debt a double loss. You lose the money and you lose future financial freedom. The emotional psychology behind bad debt. This part hits hard. Anderson explains that bad debt rarely comes from logical thinking. It comes from emotional triggers: stress, boredom, loneliness, wanting to keep up with others, trying to look successful, comfort shopping, lack of long-term vision, childhood beliefs about money. He even says, bad debt is a symptom, not a cause. It's a symptom of financial unconsciousness. People fall into bad debt not because they're irresponsible, but because they're unaware. They don't understand how money works, how interest accumulates, how compounding works against them. The financially successful? They make decisions with clarity, not emotion. The credit card trap. America's hidden crisis. This chapter exposes something crucial. Credit card debt destroys liquidity faster than anything else. Why? Because interest rates are insanely high, 20 to 30% plus. Minimum payments create a financial treadmill. Purchases are emotional, not strategic. Your balance sheet weakens instantly. You lose flexibility. You lose opportunity capital. Every dollar borrowed here becomes a long-term burden. Anderson says, credit card debt is the true toxic debt. It compounds in the wrong direction and steals your future. No financially stable person keeps credit card balances. Ever. How bad debt blocks wealth building. Here's the hidden cost nobody talks about. Every dollar used to pay down bad debt is a dollar that can't be used for investing, saving, building liquidity, securing your future, taking opportunities. You don't just lose the money you spent. You lose years of potential growth. Bad debt keeps you stuck, not because it's evil, but because it destroys your balance sheet. Why some people stay trapped in bad debt. Anderson gets honest about why millions of people stay stuck. Number one, they think income will save them. They believe they can out-earn their bad decisions. Number two, they don't understand interest. Compounding works against you when you owe money. Number three, they treat debt as normal. The culture encourages easy payments, not smart planning. Number four, they live for emotional comfort, not financial clarity. Number five, they mistake lifestyle for wealth. Cars, vacations, luxury goods, these drain money, not grow it. Number six, they avoid facing the truth. Most people don't look at their balance sheet because it scares them. He calls this financial avoidance behavior. And the cure? Honest awareness. The turnaround, how to break free from bad debt for good. Breaking free doesn't require a miracle. It requires a strategy. Anderson gives a 3-step system. Number one, stop the emotional spending cycle. Identify triggers, create rules, separate the emotion from the money. Number two, refinance or restructure high-interest debt. Lower interest equals greater financial oxygen. This might involve debt consolidation, negotiating rates, transferring balances, using low-interest personal loans strategically, using home equity carefully. Number three, build liquidity before eliminating all debt. This is where Anderson is unique. He argues that you cannot escape debt if you don't have cash reserves. Liquidity protects you from going back into debt the moment life hits you again. This is why paying off bad debt while having no emergency fund is a losing cycle. You eliminate debt today only to recreate it tomorrow. The wealthy person's rule. Bad debt goes first, but not blindly. The wealthy do eliminate bad debt quickly, but they do it intelligently. They keep liquidity, avoid draining cash reserves, restructure instead of panic paying, eliminate high-interest liabilities first, keep strategic debt untouched. This balanced approach strengthens the entire balance sheet, not just one number. Major lessons from Chapter 4. 1. Not all debt is created equal. Some debt builds you, some debt breaks you. Number 2. Bad debt is emotional, not strategic. It comes from habits, not needs. Number 3. Credit card debt is the real financial enemy. Its interest destroys wealth faster than anything else. Number 4.
Eliminating bad debt without liquidity is pointless. You'll fall right back into the same trap. Number 5. The goal isn't to be debt-free. It's to be free from destructive debt. That's the difference. Practical action steps from Chapter 4. 1. List all your current debts. Separate them into productive debt, destructive debt. Number 2. Eliminate or restructure any debt above 8 to 10% interest. These are your true wealth killers. Number 3. Build a 3 to 6 month liquidity cushion before aggressive payoff. Number 4. Identify emotional spending triggers. Replace impulse habits with deliberate decisions. Number 5. Use debt intentionally, not emotionally. Every debt should serve a purpose, not compensate for a feeling.
Chapter 5. The 3 stages of your financial life: building, maintaining, and enjoying wealth. As Thomas J. Anderson moves into Chapter 5 of The Value of Debt in Building Wealth, he introduces one of the most important frameworks in the entire book, the 3 phases of your financial life. These phases determine how you should think about debt, how you should use debt, and, equally important, when you should not use debt. Most people make the mistake of treating all years of their financial life the same. They borrow at the wrong time, pay off aggressively at the wrong time, and invest too cautiously or too aggressively without considering life stage. Anderson fixes this by giving a clear roadmap that shifts your financial strategy as your life evolves. Phase 1. The building phase, ages 20 to 50. This is the era of growth, opportunity, and calculated leverage. Anderson emphasizes that this is the point in life where controlled, productive debt is not just helpful, it is often essential. What the building phase looks like: you're likely building your career, growing your income, raising a family, purchasing a home, starting or investing in a business, laying the foundations of long-term wealth. Your expenses are high, but your earning potential is rising. This means your ability to take on reasonable debt is also rising. The goal of this stage: build a strong and expanding net worth, not eliminate every dollar of debt. Why debt works in this phase? Anderson argues that prudent, low-cost debt gives you leverage that lets you buy a home sooner, invest more consistently, build a retirement portfolio earlier, protect liquidity, and take advantage of compound returns over a longer horizon. He stresses that young people who avoid debt entirely end up growing wealth too slowly, often missing key opportunities. Key principles for the building phase: focus on liquidity. Keep cash accessible. Even if you can pay off the mortgage, it's better to have strong liquidity. Borrow strategically, not emotionally. Debt should empower investments, not lifestyle inflation. Use good debt to build assets, e.g., mortgage, education, business investment. Avoid toxic debt, credit cards, personal loans, and high-interest liabilities. Grow equity and cash at the same time. Anderson says the real power comes from combining both, not choosing one. Phase 2. The maintaining phase, ages 50 to 65. This is the stabilization era. Your goal shifts from growth to risk management, preservation, and restructuring. You are likely nearing peak earnings, reducing expenses, seeing children become independent, thinking about retirement, reassessing your debt strategy, and strengthening your balance sheet. Goal of this stage: preserve wealth, optimize taxes, and prepare for a healthy, low-risk retirement. Debt strategy in this stage. Anderson says debt is still useful here, but differently. Your goals change from growth to stability. You don't want to take maximum leverage. You don't want to take zero leverage. You want balanced, controlled leverage. Recommended actions in this phase: simplify your debts. If you have multiple loans, consolidate or refinance to streamline. Increase cash reserves. Prioritize liquidity over aggressive investing. Consider a stable leverage ratio, a strategic low amount of debt that keeps your money working without adding major risk. Reduce interest costs. Move from high-rate debt
to lower, more predictable structures. Align your debts with your future income sources, e.g., don't carry short-term loans into a retirement with fixed income. Mindset shift. The maintaining phase is about avoiding big mistakes, not chasing big returns. Phase 3, the enjoying phase, ages 65 plus. This is the stage of freedom, simplification, and income optimization. You've built wealth. You've stabilized your financial position. Now the goal is to enjoy the life you built. Goal of this stage: maximize comfort and security, reduce financial stress, and ensure your wealth lasts. Debt in the enjoying phase, contrary to traditional thinking, Anderson says it is possible and sometimes helpful to carry controlled debt in retirement. But the rules are strict. Debt must be low interest. Debt must be backed by strong liquidity. And debt must be used strategically, not emotionally. For example, a small mortgage at low interest may allow you to keep more money invested, growing faster than the mortgage costs. A line of credit can provide emergency liquidity without disrupting your investment strategy. What you should focus on? Income stability. Ensure you have consistent inflow, pensions, investment income, annuities. Low-risk debt only. Avoid adjustable rates or unpredictable payment structures. Tax efficiency. The right debt can help you avoid selling assets in high tax years. Estate planning. Ensure debt strategy aligns with what you want to leave behind. Zero-stress finance setup. At this stage, complexity is your enemy. Anderson's big message: debt should evolve with you. Debt is not a static tool. The same debt that is smart in your 30s may be reckless in your 70s. The smartest wealth builders adjust their debt strategy with each life stage. In your 20s to 40s, use debt to grow. In your 50s to 60s, restructure and stabilize. In your 70s plus, simplify and enjoy. This shifting framework allows you to maximize opportunity and minimize risk over an entire lifetime. Key lessons from Chapter 5. You cannot use the same debt strategy for all life stages. Productive debt accelerates growth in early years. Controlled leverage preserves stability in midlife. Simplified strategic debt can support income in retirement. Liquidity matters in every phase, but especially later in life. Wealth is built by combining debt, assets, and cash, not by eliminating debt entirely. A good debt strategy is dynamic and evolves as your financial situation changes.
Chapter 6. Understanding your personal balance sheet, the foundation of smart debt decisions. Thomas J. Anderson begins Chapter 6 by emphasizing something that most people overlook entirely. Wealth is not determined by your income. It is determined by your balance sheet. Your balance sheet is the scoreboard of your financial life. It shows what you own, what you owe, and how strong or fragile your financial foundation truly is. But most people never build or study their own balance sheet. They rely on bank account balances, month-to-month cash flow, and gut feelings. Anderson argues that this is one of the biggest reasons people struggle with money despite working hard. If you want to use debt effectively, avoid unnecessary risk, and build long-term wealth, you must learn how to analyze your personal balance sheet exactly the way businesses and wealthy families do. What is a personal balance sheet? A balance sheet has two sides. 1. Your assets, what you own. Cash, investments, retirement accounts, real estate, business interests, cars, valuable items, any income-producing or value-storing item. 2. Your liabilities, what you owe. Mortgages, student loans, car loans, business loans, credit cards, lines of credit, any outstanding obligation. Your net worth equals total assets minus total liabilities. Anderson says most people treat net worth like an afterthought, something they check occasionally.
But the wealthy treat net worth as the primary number that guides all financial decisions. Why your balance sheet matters more than cash flow. Many people say, "I'm doing fine, I earn good money." But income alone means nothing. A person who earns $200,000 per year but spends $190,000 is less wealthy than someone earning $80,000 who saves and invests consistently. Anderson's key insight: your balance sheet is where long-term wealth lives. Your cash flow is only the engine that feeds it. Focusing only on cash flow leads to overspending, poor investment planning, no emergency reserves, emotional borrowing, and weak retirement readiness. But focusing on your balance sheet leads to better debt decisions, stronger liquidity, smarter investing, long-term stability, the 4 elite balance sheet categories. Anderson gives a powerful classification system that helps you understand where you stand and what you should do next. He divides people into 4 balance sheet categories. 1. The struggling balance sheet. This is when you have little savings, you rely on high-interest debt, emergencies cause financial panic, net worth is low or negative. Focus. Build liquidity, stop bad debt, create stability. 2. The building balance sheet. This is the working class of wealth creation. You are saving, investing, paying down debts, buying your first home, building retirement accounts. Focus. Use productive debt to accelerate asset growth. 3. The strong balance sheet. Here your assets are growing faster than liabilities. Debt is strategic, liquidity is strong, investment accounts are significant. Focus. Optimize structure, lower risk, increase efficiency. 4. The enduring balance sheet. This is the level where true financial independence lives. You have abundant assets, minimal strategic liabilities, strong investment income, predictable financial future, and generational potential. Focus. Protection, tax optimization, and estate planning. The optimal debt ratio mindset. A major concept in this chapter is that debt should not be seen as simply good or bad. Instead, debt should be measured as a ratio of your assets. Wealthy individuals understand these ratios well. They know how much debt is healthy and how much is dangerous. Anderson argues that everyone, not just professionals, should learn these ratios. Key idea: your debt strategy must match your balance sheet strength. For example, if you're in the building phase, having more debt may be beneficial. If you're in the enduring phase, debt should be minimal and carefully structured. This section teaches you to think like a CFO of your personal financial life. Liquidity, the magic power most people ignore. Anderson strongly emphasizes liquidity. He calls it the oxygen of your financial life. Liquidity gives you safety in emergencies, flexibility to invest, protection from market downturns, ability to avoid panic selling, strength to handle unexpected expenses. Many people make the mistake of paying off all debt prematurely and leaving themselves house rich but cash poor. Anderson strongly warns against this. The danger of not knowing your balance sheet. Anderson explains that lacking this understanding leads to serious financial mistakes. Mistake 1. Paying off all debt prematurely. This kills liquidity and creates vulnerability. Mistake 2. Taking risky debt with no plan. If you can't measure your financial health, you are borrowing blind. Mistake 3. Ignoring investment opportunities. Many people miss out on years of compound returns because they tied up all their money in low-return debt. Mistake 4. Living by emotions instead of strategy. Fear leads to being overly conservative. Confidence without data leads to reckless borrowing. Your balance sheet is your grounding point, your reality check. How to build a strong personal balance sheet. Anderson ends the chapter with clear strategic instructions. 1. Track your net worth monthly. You can't improve what you don't measure. 2. Protect liquidity at all costs. Aim for 6 to 24 months of expenses depending on your income stability. 3. Use debt to build assets, not consume liabilities. Your debt should make you stronger, not poorer. 4. Focus on long-term net worth growth. Slow, steady, compounding wins. 5. Structure your debt to support, not threaten, your balance sheet. Rates, maturities, and cash reserves must all be aligned. Key takeaways from Chapter 6. Income does not determine wealth. Your balance sheet does. Wealthy individuals think in terms of strategy, not emotion. Liquidity is one of the most underrated elements of financial health. Balance sheet strength determines how much debt is appropriate. Understanding your assets and liabilities helps you make smarter decisions at every stage. You can't optimize your financial life without understanding your personal numbers. Your balance sheet is the foundation for using debt to build wealth intelligently.
Chapter 7. The 5 Stages of Financial Development, from Stability to True Wealth. Chapter 7 is one of the most important chapters in the entire book, because here Thomas J. Anderson delivers the full roadmap for transforming your financial life, step by step, stage by stage. This chapter answers the question, how do ordinary people build extraordinary wealth? Anderson argues that wealth is not a matter of talent, luck, or high income. It is a matter of progression, moving intentionally from one financial stage to the next, just like climbing a ladder. Each stage has its own challenges, responsibilities, risks, and opportunities. Each stage requires different behaviors. And most importantly, each stage requires a different relationship with debt. This chapter teaches you exactly where you are and what you must do next to strengthen your balance sheet and move toward financial independence. Let's break it down. The 5 stages of financial development. According to Anderson, every person falls into one of these stages. Financial survival, financial stability, financial security, financial flexibility, financial independence. Each stage has its own purpose, and the way you use debt in stage 1 is completely different from the way you use debt in stage 5. Let's explore each stage in detail. Stage 1. Financial survival. This is where most people begin, and where too many remain stuck for years. Characteristics of this stage: little or no savings, living paycheck to paycheck, high interest debt like credit cards and personal loans, no emergency fund, high financial stress, no real investment strategy, high vulnerability to unexpected events. When you're in survival mode, Anderson says, your number one job is not to invest, it is to stop the financial bleeding. Goals of Stage 1: build basic liquidity, 1 to 2 months of expenses. Eliminate or refinance high-interest consumer debt. Create a simple budget. Avoid new liabilities. Stop the cycle of panic-driven decisions. Debt strategy for Stage 1: bad debt equals emergency. Good debt equals non-existent. Neutral debt may be mortgage or student loans. In this stage, your emotional relationship with money is unstable, so debt must be handled carefully. Stage 2. Financial stability. This is the stage most middle-class Americans eventually reach, but very few move beyond it because they misunderstand its purpose. Characteristics of this stage: some savings, moderate debt, improved budgeting, starting to invest for retirement, more predictable monthly finances. But Anderson warns, stability is not wealth. It is the platform from which wealth is built. Many people get comfortable here and never progress further, which traps them in lower wealth ceilings. Goals of Stage 2: build 3 to 6 months of liquid savings. Start solid retirement contributions. Build a positive net worth. Create a structured debt plan, mortgage, auto, student loans. Debt strategy for Stage 2: you begin distinguishing between bad debt, like credit cards, eliminate, good debt, like mortgage, business investment, strategic debt, low-rate loans that increase asset value. This is where you first learn how productive debt can support growth. Stage 3. Financial security. This is the true beginning of wealth building.
Characteristics of this stage. Savings plus investments equal 1 to 3 years of living expenses. Lower liabilities. Higher liquidity. Consistent contributions to retirement and tax-advantaged accounts. Stronger positive net worth. Here, you're no longer worried about month-to-month survival. You now have choices. Goals of Stage 3? Build long-term investments. Strengthen emergency reserves. Start exploring real estate or entrepreneurship. Manage debt strategically to support investing. Debt strategy for Stage 3? Debt becomes a tool rather than a burden. Examples: using mortgage leverage to improve liquidity, refinancing to lower rates, maintaining lines of credit for opportunity, using low-rate loans to accelerate investment growth. Your debt decisions become more rational, less emotional. Stage 4. Financial flexibility. This is where the wealthy begin to separate themselves from the middle class. Characteristics of this stage? Large investment portfolios, significant liquid savings, ability to withstand major financial shocks, ability to seize opportunities, real estate dips, business ventures, a strong, efficient, optimized balance sheet. Here, your assets produce enough income to cover a large portion of your expenses. Goals of Stage 4? Maximize investment opportunities, reduce tax burden, protect wealth with insurance and legal structure, fine-tune long-term financial strategy, use debt to maintain liquidity and expand investments. Debt strategy for Stage 4? This is where wealthy people thrive. They use controlled leverage to grow wealth faster while maintaining strong protection. Examples: interest-only loans on investment properties, portfolio line of credit against investments, strategic mortgage structuring to preserve liquidity, low-rate leverage to take advantage of high-return opportunities. This is where debt becomes the accelerator of wealth. Stage 5. Financial independence. This is the ultimate level, where your money works harder than you do. Characteristics of this stage? Investment income exceeds living expenses. Low risk, high protection strategies. Very strong liquidity. Minimal strategic debt. Long-term wealth sustainability. You have total flexibility over your time, decisions, and lifestyle. Goals of Stage 5? Preserve wealth, reduce risk exposure, maintain liquidity, leave a legacy, continue tax-efficient investing. Debt strategy for Stage 5? Debt is used sparingly and strategically, but not eliminated completely. Wealthy people understand that being debt-free does not always mean being financially free. Sometimes maintaining a cheap mortgage, a low-rate loan, or a credit facility is smarter than selling investments and triggering taxes. This stage is about protecting what you've built and letting it compound. The emotional journey behind the stages. Anderson emphasizes that moving through these stages is not just about money. It requires discipline, emotional maturity, good decision-making, delayed gratification, and understanding financial psychology. People often fall backwards because of fear, impatience, or poor planning. He says, your financial life is a reflection of your emotional life. The stages are as much about self-mastery as financial mastery. Practical application. How to identify your stage today. Ask yourself, how much liquidity do I have? How stable is my cash flow? Do my assets meaningfully exceed my liabilities? Am I using debt to build assets or destroy them? Am I moving forward or sideways financially? Be brutally honest. Your entire wealth-building strategy depends on it. Key lessons from Chapter 7. Wealth is built in stages, not all at once. Each stage requires a different behavior and a different debt strategy. Debt is dangerous in early stages, but powerful in later stages. Most people get stuck in Stage 2 because they confuse comfort with security. Liquidity and discipline are crucial for moving upward. Financial independence is not just wealth, it's protection, flexibility, and peace.
Chapter 8. The Power of Liquidity, Your Hidden Financial Superpower. Thomas J. Anderson opens Chapter 8 with a message most people never hear in traditional personal finance advice. Quote, liquidity is not a luxury, it is a necessity. It is the foundation of your financial survival, growth, and long-term wealth. Unquote.
Most people think wealth comes from paying off debt, buying a home, investing aggressively, or saving in retirement accounts. But Anderson argues that none of those matter if you don't have liquidity, money that is available, accessible, and flexible. Liquidity is what protects you during emergencies. Liquidity is what allows you to seize opportunities. Liquidity is what keeps you from making emotional decisions. And liquidity is what determines how effectively you can use debt to build wealth. This chapter is about what liquidity is, why you need it, how much you need, and how wealthy people use it differently from everyone else. Let's break this chapter down in a clear audiobook-style format. What is liquidity, and why most people misunderstand it? Liquidity means how much cash or near cash you have that you can access quickly, easily, and without penalty. Examples of liquid assets are cash, savings accounts, money market funds, lines of credit, portfolio loans, treasury bills, certain short-term investments. Examples of non-liquid assets are real estate, retirement accounts with penalties, small businesses, private investments, long-term bonds. People often believe they're financially strong because they have a paid-off home, a retirement account, some long-term investments. But Anderson stresses, quote, "If you're house rich but cash poor," unquote, you are financially fragile. Liquidity is the safety net and the springboard of your whole financial life. Liquidity as your first line of defense. Anderson calls liquidity, quote, "the oxygen of your financial life. You barely think about it until you don't have it. And when you don't have it, everything collapses," unquote. Here's why liquidity matters. 1. Prevents financial crises. Without liquidity, even minor emergencies like car repair, dental bill, job loss can push you into debt, stress, or financial ruin. 2. Keeps you from forced selling. If markets fall and you need money, liquidity prevents you from selling investments at the worst possible time. 3. Increases your confidence. With liquidity, you stop living in fear and start planning strategically. 4. Protects your mental state. Money problems shrink your decision-making ability. Liquidity removes the emotional chaos. Anderson says the #1 difference between people who recover quickly from financial shocks and those who spiral downward is the amount of liquidity they have available. The wealthy don't fear debt, they fear illiquidity. This is one of the most counterintuitive lessons in the book. Middle-class thinking: being debt-free is safe. Wealthy thinking: being liquid is safe. The poor and middle class fear debt. The wealthy fear running out of cash. This is why wealthy people often keep mortgages, lines of credit, strategic leverage, and investment-backed loans, even when they have enough money to pay everything off tomorrow. Why? Because paying off debt kills liquidity, and killing liquidity kills opportunity. How much liquidity should you have? This chapter gives clear, actionable guidelines, not vague suggestions. Minimum liquidity levels by stage. Stage 1, survival, 1 to 2 months of expenses. Stage 2, stability, 3 to 6 months of expenses. Stage 3, security, 6 to 12 months of expenses. Stage 4, flexibility, 12 to 24 months of protected liquidity. Anderson says most people unknowingly operate with negative liquidity, which means their available cash is less than their monthly obligations. In other words, they're one emergency away from disaster. Why liquidity is more important than paying down debt. This is one of the most controversial ideas in Anderson's book. He explains that aggressively paying off debt, especially low-interest debt like a mortgage, is financially dangerous because it drains liquidity. Example: you have $80,000 in cash. You decide to pay off a 3% mortgage. You feel safe, but you're actually now less flexible, more exposed, unable to handle unexpected expenses, unable to invest when opportunities arise. Anderson says, quote, "Debt without liquidity is a crisis waiting to happen," unquote. Debt with liquidity can be strategic. No debt and no liquidity is foolish.
This is why paying off your home early often makes you poorer in the long run. The liquidity paradox. This is one of the most powerful insights in the book. The more liquidity you have, the less you need to use debt. But the less liquidity you have, the more debt you are forced to use. This means poor equals forced into debt. Middle class fears debt. Wealthy rarely forced to use debt, but strategically choose to use it. Liquidity creates options, control, and leverage. Lack of liquidity destroys them. Two types of liquidity: internal versus external. Anderson splits liquidity into two categories. 1. Internal liquidity, your cash and investments. This is cash or investments you own and control. 2. External liquidity, credit access. This includes HELOCs, business lines of credit, securities-backed loans, credit cards, personal credit lines. Wealthy people maintain both. They store liquidity internally for safety. They secure external liquidity for opportunities. The magic of available optionality. Liquidity isn't just money, it's choices. With liquidity, you can invest in downturns, buy real estate when prices drop, launch a business, refinance at lower rates, avoid panic selling, negotiate from strength, walk away from toxic jobs. Liquidity equals freedom. No liquidity equals fragility. Practical steps to build strong liquidity. Anderson gives a simple, actionable plan. 1. Stop overpaying debt. Free up cash flow. 2. Build layered savings. Basic emergency fund. Strategic liquidity. Long-term secure reserves. 3. Activate credit lines before you need them. Banks lend when you don't need money, not when you do. 4. Avoid putting too much money in illiquid investments, real estate, crypto, private equity. Good opportunities, but dangerous if they consume all your cash. 5. Automate transfers to savings and liquidity accounts. Consistency builds strength. 6. Keep opportunities in mind. Liquidity is not just for safety, it's for wealth building. Powerful quotes from Chapter 8. Quote, "Liquidity is the foundation. Everything else is built on top of it." Unquote. Quote, "Debt without liquidity is a crisis waiting to happen." Unquote. Quote, "Your home is not a bank account. Liquidity is." Unquote. Quote, "Wealth is not about eliminating debt. It's about maximizing optionality." Unquote. Key lessons from Chapter 8. Liquidity is more important than paying off low-interest debt. The wealthy maintain high liquidity at all times. Liquidity protects you from emergencies and creates opportunities. Being debt-free but illiquid is financially dangerous. Liquidity determines how effectively you can use strategic debt. Liquidity is freedom. Lack of it is chains.
Chapter 9. How much debt should you have? In this chapter, Thomas J. Anderson tackles one of the most misunderstood questions in personal finance. How much debt is the right amount? Most people instinctively believe the answer should be zero, but Anderson reframes the conversation completely. The goal is not to eliminate debt. The goal is to optimize it so your net worth grows faster and your financial life becomes more resilient. This chapter provides a blueprint for determining your ideal, healthy, wealth-building debt level based on your age, financial stability, cash flow, and long-term goals. The core principle: debt should match your stage of life. Anderson divides people into different financial life stages and explains that the right amount of debt varies dramatically depending on where you stand. Age-based guidelines. Here is a simplified version of his recommended ranges. In your 20s, you're building your foundation. Your income will increase, and leveraging cheap debt helps accelerate early wealth building. In your 30s, debt is medium to high. You're growing your career, buying a home, investing more. Debt helps you expand faster. In your 40s, debt is moderate. Income stabilizes, expenses increase, and you should maintain enough debt to fuel investing, not too little, not too much. In your 50s to 60s, debt is low to moderate. You're approaching retirement. The goal is liquidity and flexibility, not aggressive leveraging.
Retirement and beyond, debt is low but not zero. Debt can still be useful for liquidity or tax purposes, but should be carefully controlled. The main message: debt is not one size fits all, it's a dynamic tool. The debt optimization spectrum. Anderson says people typically fall into one of three categories. 1. Underleveraged. You hold too little debt. Your money is locked in assets like a paid-off home instead of being invested. You lose out on compound growth. Danger: you feel safe, but your wealth grows too slowly. 2. Properly leveraged. The sweet spot. You have just enough debt to maximize investment potential. You're liquid, flexible, and still protected from financial shocks. Debt is working for you. This is the target. 3. Over-leveraged. You have too much debt relative to income, savings, and cash flow. Your financial system becomes fragile. You're vulnerable to emergencies and downturns. Danger: one bad event can collapse everything.
The key determining factors for your correct debt level. To calculate your ideal range, Anderson recommends evaluating 5 pillars. 1. Your liquidity buffer, most important. Before taking on any additional debt, you must have emergency savings, short-term cash reserves, stable investment accounts. If you don't, debt becomes dangerous. 2. Your income stability. Ask, is my job stable? Do I have multiple income streams? How predictable is my cash flow? The more stable your income, the more debt you can safely hold. 3. Your risk tolerance. Some people get anxious if they owe even $10,000. Others comfortably manage $500,000 in leveraged investments. Debt strategy must match psychology, not just spreadsheets. 4. Your asset base. The more assets you control, home, investments, retirement accounts, businesses, the more debt you can safely manage. Debt should be supported by assets, not income alone. 5. Your long-term goals. Your goals determine your optimal leverage. Want to retire early? Use more leverage when young. Want total safety? Lower your leverage as you age. Want to build a business? Strategic debt is essential. Debt must align with your wealth vision. Practical tools from the chapter. The Safe Zone Formula. Anderson uses your net asset value, NAV, and age to determine healthy leverage. Younger age equals higher safe debt ratio. Older age equals lower safe debt ratio. This helps you determine when you're under-leveraged, when you're in the optimal zone, when you're dangerously over-leveraged. What wealthy people do differently. According to the book, wealthy people don't fear debt. Use it strategically, maintain liquidity, borrow when rates are low, invest the difference, avoid consumer debt, but leverage good debt. Middle-class people overpay mortgages, avoid all debt, lack liquidity, invest too little, grow wealth too slowly. Struggling people use debt reactively, carry expensive consumer debt, have no liquidity, panic during unexpected expenses. Key lessons from Chapter 9. 1. Zero debt is not the goal. Having no debt often means your money is locked in assets that aren't compounding fast enough. 2. Liquidity greater than low debt. Cash gives flexibility, protection, and investment opportunities. 3. The right amount of debt depends on you. Your age, income stability, risk tolerance, asset strength, goals determine your optimal debt level. 4. Properly structured debt accelerates wealth, especially when paired with disciplined investing. 5. Debt should always be backed by a safety net. Liquidity prevents leverage from becoming dangerous. Practical application for listeners. Here's what you can do right now. Step 1. Calculate your NAV, net asset value. List all assets, subtract liabilities, get NAV. Step 2. Assess your liquidity. Do you have 6 to 24 months of accessible cash? Step 3.
Compare your debt level to age-based ranges. Are you under-leveraged, optimal, or over-leveraged? Step 4. Set a debt strategy for the next 10 years. More debt when young, less debt as you age. Step 5. Ensure emotional comfort. Never borrow beyond your psychological safety threshold.
Chapter 10 is one of the core frameworks of the entire book. In previous chapters, Thomas J. Anderson showed you why the right kind of debt can accelerate your journey to building wealth. Now, in this chapter, he teaches you how to calculate your actual safe borrowing capacity, the precise amount of debt you can comfortably hold without risking financial instability. This chapter acts like a financial compass, giving you a scientific, structured, and repeatable method to determine whether you should take on more debt, maintain your current debt, or start deleveraging for long-term stability. Let's break it down in an audiobook-style, detailed, listener-friendly way. The goal of this chapter. Anderson answers one critical question. What is my exact safe borrowing limit? To answer this, he introduces a tool he calls the Debt Capacity Framework. This framework helps you determine your safe leverage based on your net asset value, cash flow, liquidity, asset stability, age and long-term plan, economic risk, and personal comfort level. It's a holistic approach, not just numbers. The 5-part debt capacity framework. Anderson breaks your debt capacity into 5 major pillars. If any of these pillars are weak, your safe debt limit shrinks. If all are strong, your capacity increases. Let's explore each pillar. 1. Liquidity capacity, the foundation of all safe debt. Liquidity is the most important factor in determining your debt limit. You must ask, how much cash do I have readily available? How quickly can I access additional funds? Do I have short-term investments I can liquidate without penalties? Liquidity equals safety. It acts as your insurance policy. Anderson insists you should never take on more debt unless your liquidity is strong. He recommends maintaining 6 to 24 months of cash reserves depending on your risk tolerance. 2. Cash flow capacity. Can you service the debt? The next pillar is your income. Ask yourself, how stable is your income? How diverse? Is your job future-proof? How consistent is your monthly cash flow? Someone with fluctuating income, for example a freelancer, has a lower safe debt capacity than someone with a stable salary. If your monthly income can comfortably cover payments even after major life events, your capacity increases. 3. Personal risk profile, your emotional and psychological comfort. Not everyone is wired the same way. Some people sleep peacefully with $500,000 in leverage. Others panic with $20,000 in debt. Your emotional tolerance limits your safe borrowing capacity more than anything else. Anderson reminds you, sustainable wealth building requires peace of mind. Debt should never create chronic stress. Your mental comfort determines your maximum safe leverage. 4. Asset stability. What are you borrowing against? Debt capacity increases when your assets are stable, diversified, income-producing, and appreciating. Good examples? A diversified investment portfolio, a rental property with positive cash flow, a stable primary residence. Risky examples? Highly volatile investments, single-source assets, leveraging against a business with unpredictable revenue. Stable assets equal higher safe debt capacity. Volatile assets equal lower safe debt capacity. 5. Age and time horizon. Your age heavily influences your ideal debt limit. Younger people, higher debt capacity, more time to recover from downturns, more time for investments to grow. Older people, lower debt capacity, less time to correct mistakes, need more liquidity and lower risk. Anderson reinforces the rule: the longer your time horizon, the more debt you can safely and productively hold. How Anderson calculates debt capacity scientifically. Here's the simplified method. Step 1. Determine your net asset value. Total assets minus total liabilities. Step 2.
Assess your overall financial strength. Rate yourself on the 5 pillars: liquidity, income stability, risk tolerance, asset quality, and age or time horizon. Each pillar influences your capacity score. Step 3. Compare your score to Anderson's leverage guidelines. He provides a chart of recommended leverage levels based on age and financial strength. For example, highly stable, well-saved 30-year-old, up to 40 to 60% healthy leverage. Moderately secure 40-year-old, 20 to 40% leverage. Conservative 55-year-old, 10 to 20% leverage. A retiree, 0 to 10% leverage. These are not rigid rules, they are frameworks. The danger zone, when your debt exceeds capacity. If your debt goes beyond your safe capacity, you enter a fragile state. Financial fragility symptoms include difficulty sleeping, anxiety around bills, cash flow tightness, inability to handle emergencies, needing new debt to pay old debt, liquidating investments prematurely. This destroys wealth. Anderson warns, over-leverage is not about how much debt you have, it's about how much debt you can safely support. The ideal zone, the optimal leverage range. When your debt is within your capacity, your liquidity remains high, investments continue compounding, income easily covers payments, emergency events don't threaten your lifestyle, you borrow further at low cost, you build wealth steadily and efficiently. This is the wealth-building leverage zone. Major lessons from Chapter 10. 1. Debt capacity is personal, not universal. Your numbers are different from someone else's. 2. Liquidity is more important than low debt. Liquidity protects you, debt accelerates you. 3. The correct debt level changes as your life changes. You must recalculate regularly. 4. You must assess both quantitative and qualitative factors. Income, assets, emotions, future goals all matter. 5. Being underleveraged slows your wealth building. Too little debt equals too much money trapped in non-productive assets. 6. Being overleveraged puts your financial life at risk. Debt should never exceed your pillars of support. Practical action steps for the listener. Here's what you can do today. 1. Calculate your current net asset value. You need the baseline. 2. Rate each of the 5 pillars from 1 to 10. Liquidity, income stability, risk tolerance, asset quality, age or time horizon. 3. Identify your current leverage ratio. Leverage ratio equals total debt divided by total assets. 4. Compare your ratio to Anderson's safe range guidelines. Where do you fall? Underleveraged? Optimal? Overleveraged? 5. Decide whether to borrow more, maintain, or deleverage. This becomes your long-term strategy.
Chapter 11. The Long-Term Leverage Strategy. How to use debt wisely throughout your entire life. Chapter 11 is all about timing, understanding when to use debt, how much to use at each stage of life, and how your relationship with debt should evolve as your wealth grows. In this chapter, Thomas J. Anderson shows that debt isn't something you use once or avoid forever. Instead, it is a lifelong strategic tool that must be managed dynamically. Your ideal leverage at age 25 is not the same as at age 45, and definitely not the same at age 65. This chapter teaches listeners how to ride the waves of life with a smart, shifting mix of assets and debt, always optimizing for wealth growth while staying protected from shocks. Let's break this chapter down in a rich audiobook-style experience. The core idea of Chapter 11. Your ideal use of debt must evolve with your age, wealth, experience, income stability, and financial goals. You don't want to be aggressively leveraged when you're nearing retirement, overly conservative when you're young and your best growth years are ahead. The right amount of leverage changes, and Anderson explains the strategy in 3 major phases. The growth phase, 20s to 40s, the preservation phase, 40s to 60s, and the harvest phase, 60s and beyond. Each phase has its own unique debt philosophy. Phase 1. The growth phase, ages 20 to 40. This is the time to intelligently borrow. In the early stages of life, your income is rising. Mistakes are recoverable. Your investment horizon is long. This means your safe debt capacity is much higher. Anderson reinforces that young adults shouldn't fear debt. They should fear missing out on compounding growth by hoarding cash or avoiding leveraged opportunities. Use this phase to build credit, acquire appreciating assets, real estate investments, lock in low interest rates, use debt to accelerate net worth growth. Example, using a mortgage to own a home early accelerates wealth massively compared to renting for 10 to 15 years. Key principle. In your growth years, smart debt equals leverage for lifelong wealth. Phase 2, the preservation phase, ages 40 to 60. Shift from building to balancing. At this stage, your income is reaching its peak. Family responsibilities increase. Risks become costlier. Retirement planning becomes clearer. Debt still plays a role, but the strategy becomes more refined and more cautious. You want moderate leverage, high liquidity, stable cash flow, diversified assets. This is the stage where many people mistakenly increase their debt too aggressively. Luxury homes, lifestyle inflation, unnecessary borrowing. Anderson warns strongly against this. Your goal in this phase? Balance your leverage with your risk capacity. Don't chase extreme returns. Don't eliminate all debt either. Maintain optimal leverage, not zero, not too much. Phase 3. The harvest phase, 60 plus. You are no longer playing offense, you are playing defense. In this stage, your job income slows or stops. Portfolio withdrawals begin. Risk tolerance drops. Liquidity becomes king. Debt can still be used, but differently. Avoid high leverage, long-term risky financing, borrowing without guaranteed backup income. Use debt cautiously for tax efficiency, liquidity enhancement, and estate planning. Lower cost access to capital. Anderson emphasizes that retirees should focus more on cash availability and wealth preservation than aggressive leverage. This phase is about protecting what you've built, not risking it. Why the debt strategy must change over time. Anderson illustrates 2 reasons. 1. Your ability to recover from mistakes changes. At 30, a financial loss is a lesson. At 65, it can be devastating. 2. Your income stability changes. Young has higher future earning potential. Retired has fixed or limited income streams. 3. Your investment horizon shrinks. Shorter horizon reduces safe leverage capacity. Leverage guidelines by life stage. While not exact rules, Anderson gives rough benchmarks. The growth phase, 20 to 40. Safe leverage, 30 to 60%. High debt capacity, high liquidity goals. The preservation phase, 40 to 60. Moderate leverage, more conservative approach. The harvest phase, 60 plus. Minimal debt unless strategically valuable. The most important rule of long-term leverage. As your life changes, your debt strategy must change too. This requires reflection, planning, awareness, recalculating debt capacity regularly. You don't set one debt plan for life, you adjust dynamically. Major lessons from Chapter 11. 1. There is no single right amount of debt for your entire life. Your ideal leverage is flexible. 2. Smart leverage early in life is one of the most powerful wealth-building tools. Avoiding all debt early slows wealth creation dramatically. 3. As you age, your focus must pivot from growth to stability. Debt becomes less about opportunity and more about liquidity and safety. 4. Debt is not dangerous, misaligned debt is. Debt used at the wrong stage is what destroys finances. 5. Your income stability matters more than your age. A 55-year-old with high, stable income may have more debt capacity than a 35-year-old freelancer. Practical applications for listeners. 1. Identify your current life stage. Are you in growth, preservation, or harvest? 2. Recalculate your debt capacity every 12 months. Life changes, income changes, capacity changes. 3. Adjust your leverage intentionally. Don't drift into new debt. Plan it. 4. In your 20s and 30s, prioritize assets over debt reduction. Use leverage to buy appreciating assets. 5. In your 40s and 50s, optimize your debt. Don't eliminate it. Balance liquidity and growth. 6. In retirement, lower your exposure. Focus on safety and cash availability.
Chapter 12, The Liquidity Engine, Why Cash is the Oxygen of Wealth and the True Foundation of Safe Debt. Chapter 12 is one of the most powerful and eye-opening chapters in The Value of Debt in Building Wealth because it reframes how most people think about money. Thomas J. Anderson makes a bold claim right at the beginning. Liquidity, not low debt, is the real measure of financial security. This chapter teaches you how liquidity is the engine that makes all smart leverage possible. Without liquidity, debt becomes a prison. With liquidity, debt becomes a tool for freedom. Anderson argues that people focus too much on debt and not nearly enough on the thing that actually protects them. Liquidity, cash or assets that can be converted to cash quickly, safely, and without losing value. It's not debt that ruins people, it's lack of liquidity. Anderson says, people don't go broke because they carry debt. They go broke because they can't make payments when something goes wrong. Think about that. Debt isn't the emergency. Cash flow interruption is. This one idea flips traditional personal finance upside down. Why liquidity is more important than low debt. Most people chase the feeling of being debt-free. They drain every dollar from savings to pay off a loan. But what happens when a surprise medical bill hits? Income drops suddenly. The economy slows. They have no cash, so they take on high-interest credit card debt, payday loans, selling investments at a loss. Meaning, they destroyed their own safety system. Anderson argues this is financial self-sabotage. A dollar of liquidity is more valuable than a dollar of reduced debt, because liquidity protects you, gives you options, prevents panic, and keeps wealth intact. Without liquidity, you're fragile. With liquidity, you're resilient. The 3 types of liquidity. Anderson identifies 3 powerful categories. 1. Immediate liquidity, or day one cash. This is the money you can access right now, within hours. It includes savings accounts, checking balances, cash equivalents, and money market funds. This is your true safety net. Anderson recommends having at least 6 months of living expenses, preferably 12 to 24 months if you want to use leverage effectively. 2. Near-term liquidity. This includes assets that are accessible within days to weeks. Examples include short-term bonds, conservative ETFs, CDs maturing within months, and cash-secured loan options. This liquidity is for market volatility, short-term financial shocks, investment opportunities, and refinancing. This layer expands your safety and flexibility. 3. Long-term liquidity. These are assets you can access within months or years, not immediately, but they boost your long-term debt capacity, including home equity, investment property equity, 401k loans as a last resort buffer, brokerage portfolios, annuity cash values. These should not be Plan A, but they deepen your safety margin. Why high liquidity makes smart debt possible. Anderson explains that liquidity stabilizes your financial life, keeps debt payments safe, helps you survive recessions, preserves investments, allows strategic borrowing, and keeps emotions under control. When you have strong liquidity, banks lend you more, offer lower rates, trust you more, consider you low risk.
Liquidity gives you negotiating power. Liquidity is your financial reputation. The emotional power of liquidity. Anderson highlights an often ignored psychological truth. People think they want to be debt-free, but what they really want is to feel safe. He says, debt doesn't take away your freedom. Lack of liquidity does. Most people fear debt because they associate it with pressure, but what they're really afraid of is their inability to handle pressure without cash. Liquidity removes fear. Liquidity makes debt feel manageable. Liquidity gives you the confidence to play offense while still being safe. Why paying off debt too fast can be dangerous. This chapter strongly criticizes the popular advice to pay off your mortgage as fast as possible. Why? Because aggressively paying down debt causes low liquidity, high equity, low flexibility equals financial fragility. You become house rich, cash poor. Example Anderson gives. Two families with the same $500,000 home. Family A pays off mortgage early, has low debt, has $20,000 in savings. Family B keeps the mortgage, holds $150,000 in savings and investments, has high liquidity. If an emergency happens, which family survives? Family B every single time, because liquidity pays bills. Liquidity handles surprises. Liquidity keeps you afloat. Liquidity buys time. The liquidity to debt ratio. Anderson provides a simple tool. Your liquidity should grow as your debt grows. He recommends tracking the liquidity to debt ratio. Total liquidity divided by total debt. General guidelines. Under 10%, very risky. 10 to 30%, acceptable. 30 to 60%, strong. Over 60%, excellent. This is how wealthy families manage leverage. How wealthy Americans use liquidity. Anderson reveals the secret. The wealthy don't avoid debt. They maintain more liquidity than anyone else. They keep huge cash buffers, flexible lines of credit, diversified assets, emergency reserves, and strategically structured debt. They're never desperate for cash. They never sell assets at the wrong time. They never borrow money out of panic. Liquidity is their shield. Debt is their tool. The combination is their power. Major lessons from Chapter 12. 1. Cash is more important than being debt-free. Debt-free without cash is fragile. Debt with liquidity is stable. 2. Liquidity is the foundation of safe leverage. Never borrow without strong reserves. 3. People don't go broke from debt. They go broke because of lack of liquidity. This one mindset shift can change your entire financial life. 4. Paying off debt too fast can be a mistake. Don't sacrifice liquidity for the emotional win. 5. Liquidity equals freedom. Cash provides peace, flexibility, and opportunity. 6. The wealthy prioritize liquidity above everything else. That's why they stay wealthy. Practical applications for the listener. 1. Build a minimum 6-month liquidity reserve. 12 to 24 months if using leverage. 2. Track your liquidity to debt ratio monthly. 3. Don't pay off low-interest debt at the cost of cash. 4. Keep multiple forms of liquidity: checking, savings, money market, short-term investments, credit lines. 5. Increase liquidity before increasing debt. 6. Review liquidity after every major life change. Chapter 12 completes a critical part of Anderson's philosophy. Debt becomes dangerous only when liquidity is weak. Debt becomes powerful when liquidity is strong.
Chapter 13. The Psychology of Using Debt Wisely. In this chapter, Thomas J. Anderson steps away from formulas, ratios, and financial frameworks and dives straight into the human mind. Because the truth is simple, your financial life will never rise above your psychology. You can have the perfect debt-to-asset ratio, the ideal investment plan, and the smartest strategy. But if fear, ego, impatience, or insecurity control your decisions, wealth will always slip through your fingers. Chapter 13 digs into why people make irrational money choices, how emotions sabotage your ability to use debt as a wealth-building tool, and the mental shifts required to behave like the wealthy. 1. The emotional problem with debt. Most Americans don't just use debt, they feel it. Anderson explains that people fall into 3 emotional categories regarding debt. 1. Debt phobic, or fear. These people avoid debt like it's toxic waste. They associate any borrowing with stress, shame, or danger. Typical behaviors. They overpay debt even when mathematically it's a bad move. They avoid opportunities because they're scared of owing money. They mistake no debt for financial success. Fear shuts down wealth creation. Fear keeps people small. 2. Debt neutral, or indifference. These people don't think deeply about debt. They pay bills, take loans when needed, and hope things work out. This describes the average middle-class American. They're not intentional, they're not strategic, they drift financially. 3. Debt empowered, or strategic calmness. This is where wealthy people live. They understand that, quote, debt is neither good nor bad. It's simply a tool. The user determines the outcome, unquote. Wealthy individuals use debt like a surgeon uses a scalpel. Calm, precise, and unemotional. 2. Why emotions destroy financial decisions. Humans are wired for survival, not long-term planning. Our brains evolved to prefer safety, certainty, and immediate comfort. This creates the following wealth-destroying tendencies. Loss aversion. We feel the pain of losing $100 twice as strongly as the joy of gaining $100. This makes investors scared to take calculated risks. Status anxiety. People buy homes, cars, or lifestyle debt to impress others. This traps them financially. Present bias. People overvalue right now and undervalue later. That's why they overspend, underinvest, and stay trapped in bad financial patterns. Emotional exhaustion. Debt carries emotional weight. When money decisions stress someone, they make poor choices simply to feel relief, not to build wealth. 3. Wealth requires a rational money mindset. Anderson explains that the wealthy do not panic when markets dip, fear taking on good debt, or overspend to look successful. Instead, they think long-term, stay calm, and use leverage strategically. The wealthy person's financial mindset. Debt is a tool. Cash flow is king. Assets matter more than liabilities. Emotions must be separated from decisions. Every move has a long-term purpose. Wealth is built over decades, not months. Wealth is a psychological game before it is a financial one. 4. Creating the right debt identity. Anderson says every person holds a hidden money identity formed from childhood, culture, and life experiences. Examples. Debt is dangerous. Money is stressful. Rich people are greedy. I'm just not good with finances. These subconscious beliefs control behavior. To build wealth, you must rewrite your identity around money. The ideal debt identity. Quote, I am a rational, strategic, disciplined manager of money and debt. I use financial tools to build wealth, not to buy lifestyle. Unquote. This identity shift separates wealthy behaviors from middle-class habits. 5. The role of confidence versus ego. There's a difference between calm confidence and arrogance. Confidence understands risk, makes measured decisions, uses debt strategically, stays calm during uncertainty. Ego overborrows, takes stupid risks, uses debt to appear wealthy, focuses on impressing others. Anderson warns, quote, debt combined with ego is deadly. Debt combined with discipline is powerful. Unquote. This chapter teaches that emotional discipline is the greatest financial asset you can ever develop. 6. Key lessons from Chapter 13. Lesson 1. Emotions are the #1 enemy of wealth. Your bank account reflects your behavior, and your behavior reflects your psychology. Lesson 2. Debt is neutral, behavior is not. Tools don't ruin people, poor decisions do. Lesson 3. Wealth requires calm, long-term thinking. You must detach your emotions from financial decisions. Lesson 4. Rewrite your money identity. Shift from debt is dangerous to debt is a strategic tool. Lesson 5. Avoid ego-based borrowing. Don't use debt for status or lifestyle. Use it for assets and cash flow. 7. Practical applications, step by step. 1. Create your personal debt identity statement. Write a simple sentence. I use debt strategically and rationally to build wealth. Read it daily for 30 days. 2. Identify your emotional triggers. Ask, do I fear debt? Do I overspend to look successful? Do I avoid opportunities because of fear? Awareness comes before change. 3. Pause before any financial decision. Ask these 5 questions. Is this emotional or strategic? Does this help me build assets? Does this improve my long-term wealth? Am I acting out of fear, ego, or impulse? Will this matter in 10 years? If a decision fails these tests, don't do it. 4. Build strategic calmness. Practice meditation, journaling, long-term planning, financial education. A calm mind makes better money decisions. 5. Track behavior, not just numbers. Record every time you make an emotional financial choice, panic during a downturn, chase a lifestyle purchase, or avoid smart borrowing out of fear. Behavioral tracking brings clarity.
Chapter 14. Debt as a Tool for Freedom, Not Slavery. Chapter 14 is where Thomas J. Anderson shifts the entire narrative around debt. Instead of seeing it as a burden, he challenges you to see debt as a pathway to freedom, something that can give you time, opportunities, and wealth. This chapter digs deep into the mindset, mechanics, and long-term strategy behind using debt not to trap yourself, but to liberate yourself financially. Most people in America believe freedom comes from having no debt at all, but Anderson flips this idea on its head. Freedom doesn't come from avoiding debt. Freedom comes from understanding debt. Let's dive in. 1. Most Americans use debt backwards. Anderson begins by explaining that the average American's relationship with debt is deeply emotional and deeply flawed. The average person uses debt to buy liabilities, cars, vacations, lifestyle upgrades, impress people, escape discomfort, live outside their real income. This kind of debt creates slavery, not freedom. Why? Because it drains cash flow, increases stress, and forces people to work jobs they hate simply to stay afloat. This is where Anderson delivers a punch. Debt is not the enemy. Ignorance is. Debt used without strategy destroys people. Debt used with strategy frees people. 2. The wealthy use debt to buy time. Wealthy families see debt through one lens. Does this debt give me more time? Time is the ultimate luxury. It is the ultimate wealth. It is the one resource that never renews itself. Wealthy people borrow for things that produce time, investments that create passive income, education that improves earning power, long-term assets that grow without constant effort, businesses that scale income beyond hours worked. They never use debt to feel rich today. They use debt to be free tomorrow. One of Anderson's most powerful observations, consumer debt makes you poorer. Strategic debt makes your future richer. 3. Freedom comes from cash flow, not from being debt-free. This chapter repeats a theme that defines Anderson's philosophy.
Your greatest financial freedom comes from cash flow, not from being debt-free. Think about it. If you had $8,000 per month in passive income, would you care if you had a mortgage, a low-interest loan, investment leverage? No, because positive, consistent cash flow means freedom. People who chase debt-free usually deplete their savings paying off low-interest debt, lose the power of compounding, avoid investing, delay wealth building, remain tied to jobs they hate. They're free from debt, but not free in life. 4. The debt freedom paradox. Here's the paradox Anderson explains. You can be debt-free and still broke. You can have debt and still be financially free. This blows people's minds because society teaches the opposite. But Anderson breaks it down. A person with zero debt but zero assets is not free. They're vulnerable. A person with a mortgage, business debt, investment leverage, and $2 million plus in assets, strong cash flow, long-term investments is free. Because freedom is built on assets, income, stability, and optionality, not the absence of borrowing. 5. How to use debt to create freedom. The framework. Anderson gives a simple but powerful framework to identify freedom debt versus slavery debt. Freedom debt. Debt used to create future income, ownership, and time. Examples: a mortgage on a rental property, a business loan to expand operations, low-interest leverage used for long-term investing, educational loans that increase lifetime earning power, refinancing to free up cash flow for investment. Slavery debt. Debt used to buy liabilities and short-term pleasure. Examples: credit card lifestyle upgrades, new cars you can't afford, luxury purchases, overpriced homes driven by emotion, bad refinancing that inflates payments. The rule is simple. If it buys assets, it's freedom. If it buys lifestyle, it's slavery. 6. The rule of liquidity in true freedom. People misunderstand liquidity. They think being debt-free makes them safe, but Anderson argues the opposite. Liquidity is safer than being debt-free, because liquidity saves you in emergencies, creates flexibility, lets you invest during market dips, gives you negotiating power, reduces anxiety. A person with $100K in cash and a mortgage has more freedom than a person with no mortgage and $0 in the bank. That's emotional freedom. That's strategic freedom. That's real freedom. 7. Your financial life needs a freedom number. Anderson introduces one of his best ideas here. You need a monthly cash flow target that buys your time back. This is your freedom number. Examples: $3,000 per month to cover rent and food, $5,000 per month to live modestly, $10,000 per month to feel secure and flexible, $20,000 per month to live abundantly. Your goal is not simply to eliminate debt. Your goal is to reach your freedom number through investment income, business income, strategic debt-supported assets. This is how wealthy families build generational stability. 8. Emotional freedom matters too. Anderson emphasizes something rarely discussed in finance. Financial freedom isn't just numbers, it's emotional freedom. Debt is stressful when it's unplanned, it's tied to lifestyle, you feel out of control, your payments exceed cash flow, your debt has no purpose. Debt is empowering when it builds your future, it expands your options, it's backed by assets, you fully understand it, it increases cash flow. Debt should give you peace, not take it away. 9. Key lessons from Chapter 14. Lesson 1. Debt can create freedom when used correctly. Freedom comes from strategy, not avoidance. Lesson 2. Cash flow, not being debt-free, creates real independence. Focus on monthly income, not the elimination of all liabilities. Lesson 3. Use debt to buy assets, not lifestyle. If it appreciates or pays you, good. If it depreciates or entertains you, bad. Lesson 4. Liquidity creates stability. Cash reserves matter more than eliminating low-interest loans. Lesson 5. Define your freedom number. Your financial goal is cash flow that buys your time back. 10. Practical applications, step by step. 1. Identify all your current debts. Divide them into freedom debt, slavery debt. Eliminate only the slavery category. 2. Build a 6 to 12-month liquidity reserve. This is your psychological and financial shield. 3. Calculate your freedom number. Ask, how much monthly income buys me my time? 4. Create a strategic debt plan for assets. This could include rental properties, business financing, investment leverage done safely, refinancing to increase cash flow. 5. Stop using debt for lifestyle upgrades. No new debt for cars, vacations, fashion, home upgrades, or status purchases. 6. Shift your mindset. Repeat, debt is a tool for freedom when used intentionally.
Chapter 14 is where Thomas J. Anderson shifts the entire narrative around debt. Instead of seeing it as a burden, he challenges you to see debt as a pathway to freedom, something that can give you time, opportunities, and wealth. This chapter digs deep into the mindset, mechanics, and long-term strategy behind using debt not to entrap yourself, but to liberate yourself financially. Most people in America believe freedom comes from having no debt at all, but Anderson flips this idea on its head. Freedom doesn't come from avoiding debt. Freedom comes from understanding debt. Let's dive in. 1. Most Americans use debt backwards. Anderson begins by explaining that the average American's relationship with debt is deeply emotional and deeply flawed. The average person uses debt to buy liabilities, cars, vacations, lifestyle upgrades, impress people, escape discomfort, live outside their real income. This kind of debt creates slavery, not freedom. Why? Because it drains cash flow, increases stress, and forces people to work jobs they hate simply to stay afloat. This is where Anderson delivers a punch. Debt is not the enemy. Ignorance is. Debt used without strategy destroys people. Debt used with strategy frees people. 2. The wealthy use debt to buy time. Wealthy families see debt through one lens. Does this debt give me more time? Time is the ultimate luxury. It is the ultimate wealth. It is the one resource that never renews itself. Wealthy people borrow for things that produce time, investments that create passive income, education that improves earning power, long-term assets that grow without constant effort, businesses that scale income beyond hours worked. They never use debt to feel rich today. They use debt to be free tomorrow. One of Anderson's most powerful observations. Consumer debt makes you poorer. Strategic debt makes your future richer. 3. Freedom comes from cash flow, not from being debt-free. This chapter repeats a theme that defines Anderson's philosophy. Your greatest financial freedom comes from cash flow, not from being debt-free. Think about it. If you had $8,000 a month in passive income, would you care if you had a mortgage, a low-interest loan, investment leverage? No, because positive, consistent cash flow means freedom. People who chase debt-free usually deplete their savings paying off low-interest debt, lose the power of compounding, avoid investing, delay wealth building, remain tied to jobs they hate. They're free from debt, but not free in life. 4. The debt freedom paradox. Here's the paradox Anderson explains. You can be debt-free and still broke. You can have debt and still be financially free. This blows people's minds because society teaches the opposite. But Anderson breaks it down. A person with zero debt but zero assets is not free. They're vulnerable. A person with a mortgage, business debt, investment leverage, and $2 million plus in assets, strong cash flow, long-term investments is free because freedom is built on assets, income, stability, optionality, not the absence of borrowing. 5. How to use debt to create freedom. The framework. Anderson gives a simple but powerful framework
to identify freedom debt versus slavery debt. Freedom debt. Debt used to create future income, ownership, and time. Examples: a mortgage on a rental property, a business loan to expand operations, low-interest leverage used for long-term investing, educational loans that increase lifetime earning power, refinancing to free up cash flow for investment. Slavery debt. Debt used to buy liabilities and short-term pleasure. Examples: credit card lifestyle upgrades, new cars you can't afford, luxury purchases, overpriced homes driven by emotion, bad refinancing that inflates payments. The rule is simple. If it buys assets, it's freedom. If it buys lifestyle, it's slavery. 6. The role of liquidity in true freedom. People misunderstand liquidity. They think being debt-free makes them safe, but Anderson argues the opposite. Liquidity is safer than being debt-free, because liquidity saves you in emergencies, creates flexibility, lets you invest during market dips, gives you negotiating power, reduces anxiety. A person with $100K cash and a mortgage has more freedom than a person with no mortgage and $0 in the bank. That's emotional freedom. That's strategic freedom. That's real freedom. 7. Your financial life needs a freedom number. Anderson introduces one of his best ideas here. You need a monthly cash flow target that buys your time back. This is your freedom number. Examples: $3,000 a month to cover rent and food, $5,000 a month to live modestly, $10,000 a month to feel secure and flexible, $20,000 a month to live abundantly. Your goal is not simply to eliminate debt. Your goal is to reach your freedom number through investment income, business income, and strategic debt-supported assets. This is how wealthy families build generational stability.
8. Emotional freedom matters too. Anderson emphasizes something rarely discussed in finance. Financial freedom isn't just numbers. It's emotional freedom. Debt is stressful when it's unplanned, it's tied to lifestyle, you feel out of control, your payments exceed cash flow, your debt has no purpose. Debt is empowering when it builds your future, it expands your options, it's backed by assets, you fully understand it, it increases cash flow. Debt should give you peace, not take it away. 9. Key lessons from Chapter 14. Lesson 1. Debt can create freedom when used correctly. Freedom comes from strategy, not avoidance. Lesson 2. Cash flow, not being debt-free, creates real independence. Focus on monthly income, not the elimination of all liabilities. Lesson 3. Use debt to buy assets, not lifestyle. If it appreciates or pays you, good. If it depreciates or entertains you, bad. Lesson 4. Liquidity creates stability. Cash reserves matter more than eliminating low-interest loans. Lesson 5. Define your freedom number. Your financial goal is cash flow that buys back your time. 10. Practical applications, step by step. 1. Identify all your current debts. Divide them into freedom debt, slavery debt. Eliminate only the slavery category. 2. Build a 6 to 12-month liquidity reserve. This is your psychological and financial shield. 3. Calculate your freedom number. Ask, how much monthly income buys me back my time? 4. Create a strategic debt plan for assets. This could include rental properties, business financing, investment leverage, done safely, refinancing to increase cash flow. 5. Stop using debt for lifestyle upgrades. No new debt for cars, vacations, fashion, home upgrades, status purchases. 6. Shift your mindset. Repeat. Debt is a tool for freedom when used intentionally.
Chapter 15. The one decision that changes everything. Choosing intentional leverage. Chapter 15 is the climax of Thomas J. Anderson's philosophy. This is where he tells you, straight up, your financial destiny depends on one single decision. Will you fear debt or will you master it? This chapter isn't about numbers or formulas. It's about mindset, identity, and the courage to think differently than 90% of Americans who have been misled their entire lives about money. Here, Anderson makes it crystal clear. You do not build wealth by avoiding what you don't understand. You build wealth by understanding what others avoid. Debt isn't the villain. Debt isn't the savior. Debt is simply a tool. And like any tool, a hammer, a knife, a chainsaw, it can build or it can destroy. The difference is the skill of the person holding it. Let's break down this chapter the way your audiobook audience will love. 1. The turning point. You must decide who controls your future. Anderson begins by addressing the most dangerous financial belief in America. If I just avoid debt my whole life, I'll be safe. This belief keeps millions of people underinvested, undereducated, underprepared for retirement, trapped in jobs, afraid of opportunity. Fear of debt leads to fear of growth. Fear of debt leads to fear of investing. Fear of debt leads to financial stagnation. But wealthy families do not become wealthy through avoidance. They become wealthy through intentional participation. This is the pivotal decision Anderson requires you to make. Don't trust debt. No, I trust myself to manage debt wisely. This shift is everything. 2. Understanding debt brings power. Avoiding debt brings fragility. Think about this for a moment. People who fear debt also fear market downturns, interest rate changes, real estate leverage, business financing, investment opportunities. They make decisions from a place of insecurity. But people who understand debt move confidently, see opportunities others miss, build portfolios, use liquidity to create safety, use leverage to accelerate growth. Ignorance creates fragility. Knowledge creates stability. Anderson says it boldly. The safest people in America are not debt-free. They're the ones who understand debt better than anyone else. 3. The decision to use debt intentionally changes your entire life trajectory. Once you choose to understand leverage, your life splits into two different futures. Future number 1, the debt-free mindset, survival path. Avoids all borrowing, loses buying power, builds wealth slowly, stays in the job longer than they want to, retires later, misses opportunities, stays fearful, holds too much cash earning nothing, prays markets rise but never takes advantage when they fall. This is the average American life. Future number 2, the intentional leverage mindset, wealth path. Uses low-interest debt strategically, keeps large liquidity reserves, invests aggressively in long-term assets, builds wealth even during downturns, retires earlier, enjoys flexibility, buys time and reduces stress, plans instead of react. This is the life of financially free individuals. The difference is not personality, it is not intelligence, it is not income. It is the decision to master leverage. 4. The emotional transformation from fear to confidence. One of the deepest points Anderson makes is that wealth building is emotional before it is mathematical. Debt triggers fear, shame, stress, judgment, scarcity thinking, so most people run from it. But Anderson argues that only 2 emotions should guide your financial life. 1. Confidence. 2. Intention. When you decide to use debt intentionally, fear fades, shame disappears, stress lowers, control increases, clarity rises, long-term focus strengthens. Your financial decisions stop being reactive and start being strategic. The emotional freedom this brings is enormous. 5. The 3 questions that determine intentional leverage. Anderson gives 3 questions that decide whether your debt is intentional or destructive. If you can answer yes to all 3, the debt is good. 1. Does this borrowing increase my long-term wealth? If yes, then intentional. If no, then destructive. 2. Does this borrowing increase my long-term cash flow? That's freedom. 3. Does this borrowing increase my long-term safety and liquidity? Most people skip this, big mistake. If any answer is no, don't take the debt. But if all 3 are yes, you're not taking a risk, you're taking control. 6. Wealthy families make this decision early. Here's something shocking that Anderson reveals. Wealthy families teach intentional leverage to their kids. Most middle-class families teach fear. Kids who grow up with financial fear spend their lives avoiding debt, avoiding investing, and avoiding growth. Kids who grow up understanding leverage start investing young, use strategic borrowing, buy income-producing assets, avoid consumer debt, retire decades earlier. The decision you make about debt today will echo into the next generation of your family. 7. Society won't support your decision, and that's a good thing. Once you start using debt intentionally, you'll notice something. Most people won't understand you. Your coworkers won't. Your relatives won't. Your friends won't. They'll say things like, "Just pay it all off. Debt is dangerous. I don't trust the stock market. I'd rather be safe." But what they call safe is not actually safe. Anderson emphasizes most people are deeply misinformed about finance. So if society thinks you're crazy, you're probably on the right track. 8. The real enemy is passive living. The biggest villain in this chapter isn't bad debt, it's passive living, drifting through life without intention. People lose decades because they never educate themselves, never invest early, avoid financial complexity, let fear make their choices, follow the herd, prioritize comfort over growth. Being debt-free isn't the victory. Being financially free is. Debt can be your ladder to that victory, but only if you choose to use it intentionally. 9. Key lessons from Chapter 15. Lesson 1. Avoiding debt makes you fragile. Understanding debt makes you strong. Lesson 2. The decision to engage with leverage is the turning point of your financial life. Lesson 3. Fear-based financial decisions keep you poor. Strategy-based decisions build wealth. Lesson 4. Intentional leverage requires confidence, liquidity, and long-term thinking. Lesson 5. Mastering leverage separates wealth builders from wealth avoiders. 10. Practical applications for this chapter. 1. Write down your current beliefs about debt. Identify which ones come from fear, family, misinformation, culture. 2. Reclassify each belief into rational, irrational, helpful, harmful. 3. Make a list of the areas where you are avoiding financial growth: investing, borrowing, scaling, refinancing, business growth, asset acquisition. 4. Make the decision Anderson demands. I will use debt intentionally, not emotionally. 5. Build your first strategic leverage plan. This includes safe borrowing, strong liquidity, long-term asset growth, cash flow expansion. 6. Review the plan every 6 to 12 months. Intentional leverage is dynamic. It grows with you.
Chapter 16. Building Your Lifetime Wealth Plan, the Integrated Strategy. Chapter 16 is the grand finale, the chapter where Thomas J. Anderson brings all the lessons together and shows you exactly how to structure your entire lifetime wealth plan using the power of smart debt, liquidity, cash flow, and long-term investing. If the previous chapters taught you how to think differently, this chapter teaches you how to live differently. Anderson wants you to walk away not just with knowledge, but with a complete, actionable, lifelong framework for building wealth with confidence, clarity, and control. Let's break it down chapter audiobook style. Disclosure of the audiobook snapshots. 1. The journey comes together. Experience plus structure equals wealth. Anderson opens by telling you plainly, wealth isn't created by random good decisions. Wealth is created by an organized financial life. Not with guesswork, not with hoping markets go up, not with trying to pay everything off as fast as possible. Wealth comes from structure. This chapter is your blueprint, the same blueprint wealthy families, corporate financial officers, and elite planners use to build long-term prosperity. Here's what Anderson wants to drive home. When your debts, assets, income streams, liquidity, and risk management work together, wealth becomes inevitable. Most people live with these pieces scattered everywhere. Wealthy people build a system. And now, so will you. 2. The 4 pillars of a lifetime wealth plan.
Anderson identifies 4 lifelong pillars that support financial independence. Pillar 1. Liquidity, your safety and flexibility. Liquidity is the foundation. It protects you when life hits hard and positions you when opportunity arises. Your liquidity goals should be 6 to 12 months of living expenses. Additional liquidity for market downturns. Liquidity to take advantage of underpriced assets. Liquidity to refinance or restructure debt anytime. Liquidity equals freedom. Liquidity equals peace. Liquidity equals power. Never sacrifice it just to pay something off early. That's amateur thinking. Pillar 2. Strategic debt, your hidden advantage. Debt is not the enemy. Unplanned debt is. Strategic debt is your financial engine. Low-interest loans, mortgages, refinanced liabilities, home equity lines, business credit, investment leverage. Used properly, these fuel more cash flow, more assets, more growth, more long-term returns. The wealthy use debt the way pilots use instruments, intentionally, clearly, and with training. You must train yourself too. Pillar 3. Long-term investing, your wealth machine. This includes stock market, index funds, retirement plans, real estate, businesses, long-term compounding. Anderson reminds you, compounding only works if you stay invested, and staying invested requires liquidity. The reason most Americans are bad investors is simple. They have no liquidity, so every emergency becomes a forced withdrawal. Liquidity protects compounding. Compounding creates wealth. Pillar 4. Cash flow, your freedom fuel. Cash flow is the goal, not net worth, not debt-free status, not owning stuff outright. Monthly cash flow is what buys time, choices, retirement, relief from jobs, ease in life, actual freedom. A lifetime wealth plan prioritizes building consistent positive monthly cash flow from investments, businesses, real estate, dividends, royalties, and intellectual property, digital assets, REITs, and bond ladders. Private lending. This is your independence. 3. Designing your lifetime wealth structure. This is where Anderson gives you the step-by-step structure for your entire financial life. Step 1. Build your safety layer, liquidity. Emergency fund, cash reserves, access to credit, refinance high-rate debt into low-rate debt, build multiple liquidity buckets, checking, savings, brokerage. This is your shield. Step 2. Build your growth layer, investing. Automatic monthly investing, retirement accounts, tax-advantaged investing, dollar-cost averaging, long-term index funds, real estate acquisition plan. This is your engine. Step 3. Build your freedom layer, cash flow, rental properties, dividend portfolios, business income, royalties and intellectual property, digital assets, REITs, and bond ladders. This is your freedom. Step 4. Build your leverage layer. This is how you accelerate everything else. Refinancing at low rates, using home equity strategically, leveraging investment accounts, HELOC access for emergencies, business credit for expansion, mortgage structure for maximum cash flow. This is your accelerator. 5. The emotions behind a lifetime plan. Money isn't just math, it's emotion. Anderson addresses emotional traps: fear of debt, fear of investing, fear of losing liquidity, fear of doing it wrong, fear of change. He says, avoidance is not a financial plan. Your emotions must become part of your strategy, not the enemy of your strategy. He encourages you to build confidence the same way wealthy families do, by learning, by planning, by preparing, by structuring your finances, by understanding how debt works, by building liquidity, by staying invested, by making intentional decisions. Confidence replaces fear. Knowledge replaces insecurity. Structure replaces chaos. 6. What wealth really means. This chapter ends with a redefinition of wealth that your audience will deeply resonate with. Wealth is not being debt-free, owning a lot of stuff, having a huge account balance. Wealth is time, choices, flexibility, the ability to say no, the ability to walk away, the ability to enjoy your life without stress. Wealth is not a number, it's a lifestyle built through structure. Anderson wants you to walk away knowing you don't need millions to be wealthy. You need structure, cash flow, and confidence. This is the real message of the book. 7. Key lessons from Chapter 16. Wealth is built through structure, not randomness. Liquidity is your foundation. Strategic debt accelerates your journey. Investing creates your engine. Cash flow creates your freedom. Your plan evolves through life's phases. Confidence is your most powerful financial asset. 8. Practical applications. Do this immediately. 1. Write your lifetime wealth plan on one page. Liquidity strategy, investment strategy, debt strategy, cash flow strategy, risk management strategy.
As we close out the value of debt in building wealth, let's take a moment to breathe, step back, and appreciate how transformational this journey has been. Thomas J. Anderson doesn't just challenge the way we think about money, he flips the script entirely. He shows us that wealth isn't only built by cutting up credit cards, avoiding debt like the plague, or hoarding cash in fear. True wealth comes from understanding the strategic role debt can play, when used intentionally, responsibly, and with a long-term vision. This book isn't a get-rich-quick manual. It's a mindset shift, a slow, steady, disciplined shift that turns financial anxiety into financial mastery. And if you've listened this far, you've already taken the most important step. You're willing to think differently. What this book leaves us with: a new mental blueprint. The biggest takeaway is simple but powerful. Debt is neither good nor bad, it's a tool. The danger isn't the tool, it's the way we use it. Used recklessly, debt destroys lives. Used strategically, debt accelerates wealth, builds resilience, and creates new opportunities. Anderson's interest rate arbitrage, the 5-box system, and his tiered approach to wealth, from the safety-first foundations to the higher-level optimization strategies, give us a roadmap that is both practical and realistic for everyday people. If you take nothing else from this audiobook, take this. You have far more control over your financial future than you think. You don't need to be born rich. You don't need luck. You need discipline, clarity, and a strategic plan that helps your money do the heavy lifting. This book shows you how to build safety first, eliminate destructive debt, create a liquidity base, use good debt appropriately, and grow your net worth intentionally. This is how real wealth is built: slowly, silently, intelligently. Apply these lessons to your own life. Don't just listen to this audiobook and walk away inspired. Take action. Start with your numbers. Know your income, your debts, your assets, your rates, your risks. Make a simple version of the 5-box system, even if it's just on paper. It works. Upgrade your financial habits. Every step, even the tiny ones, compounds. And most importantly, never fear money. Understand it. Control it. Use it with wisdom and intention. Because financial freedom isn't something people fall into. It's something they build, brick by brick, choice by choice, mindset shift by mindset shift. Thank you for listening. Thank you for being here with me on this long-form journey, for choosing to improve your life, strengthen your financial mindset, and move forward with clarity.
If this audiobook brought you value, make sure to check out the other life-changing summaries on Audio Growth Library, where we're committed to helping you grow financially, mentally, and emotionally, one book at a time. Remember, you're not just learning, you're leveling up, and your future self will thank you.